Have you ever had one of those moments that completely changes your life? Something so unexpected, so out of the blue, that it shakes everything you thought you knew. For me, it wasn't a grand gesture or some dramatic confession, it was an elevator. Just a tiny metal box with flickering lights and no escape. And trust me when I say this, what happened in there changed everything. Quote, "Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button because today's story is one you won't want to miss. It's about love, identity, and how sometimes, the most ordinary situations can lead to extraordinary outcomes. By the end of this video, you'll not only hear my story but also understand why taking chances, even when they scare us, can open doors we didn't know existed. Now let me take you back to where it all began. My name isn't important, but who I am might be. I'm gay, or bisexual, depending on how you look at it, and navigating relationships has always been complicated for me. Not because of other people necessarily, but because of my own insecurities. You see, I've always been the quiet type, the kind of person who notices every little detail but rarely says anything out loud. Observant, maybe even reserved, but definitely not fearless. At least, not until recently. I work in a bustling office downtown, surrounded by coworkers who are either too busy chasing deadlines or gossiping over coffee breaks. My days blur together, meetings, emails, more meetings, and honestly, I liked it that way. Predictable, safe, easy. But then he walked in. Alex. Confident, charming, and oh so straight, or so he claimed. He was the kind of guy everyone noticed without even trying. The kind of guy the first would never stand a chance with. Or so I thought. Our paths crossed often enough for me to notice things about him. Like the way his laugh carried across the room during team lunches or how he'd occasionally glance at me just a second longer than necessary. Was I imagining it? Maybe. But deep down, part of me hoped I wasn't. And then came the day we found ourselves stuck together in that elevator. No witnesses, no distractions, just two people forced to confront emotions neither of us saw coming. What started as an awkward situation turned into something far deeper. Something real. And if you stick around till the end, I promise you'll discover exactly what happened between us, and why it matters more than I ever expected. So grab your headphones, settle in, and get ready for a story full of twists, turns, and lessons learned along the way. Don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories like this. Thanks for being here, and let's dive into the moment that changed everything. I never thought an elevator could change someone's life, but it did mine. That tiny, suffocating box became the stage for a moment I'll never forget. A moment that forced me to confront feelings I'd buried and truths I wasn't ready to face. But before we get there, let me take you back to where it all began. I'm not the kind of person who stands out in a crowd. I blend in, stay quiet, and keep my thoughts to myself. Some might call me reserved, others might say I'm just shy. Either way, I've always been more comfortable observing than participating. My days revolve around routines, working at a busy office downtown, sipping coffee alone during breaks, and retreating into my own world whenever things get too loud. Life was predictable, safe, and honestly, pretty dull. Until he showed up. Alex. The name alone brings back memories I can't ignore. He wasn't like me, not even close. From the moment he walked into the office, he radiated confidence. His laugh echoed through hallways, his presence filled rooms, and his charm seemed effortless. Everyone liked him instantly, including me. But liking him felt dangerous because Alex had one defining trait: he was straight, or at least, that's what he said. Still, something about him intrigued me. Maybe it was the way he carried himself or how he'd occasionally catch my eye during meetings. It wasn't obvious, but it was enough to make me wonder. Was he looking at me longer than necessary, or was I imagining things? There were moments when our paths crossed, a casual brush of shoulders while passing in the hallway, a lingering smile after exchanging pleasantries, that made my heart race. But I told myself it was nothing. After all, why would someone like Alex ever notice someone like me? Then came the day everything changed. It started as an ordinary evening at work. The office was quieter than usual, most people having already left for the day. I stayed late, finishing up a project, trying to avoid thinking about Alex and the confusing mix of emotions he stirred in me. As I packed up my things, I heard footsteps behind me. Turning around, I saw him walking toward the elevator. For a split second, our eyes met, and I froze. Before I could overthink it, he gestured toward the doors. Heading out, he asked casually. I nodded, stepping inside beside him. The elevator hummed to life, descending slowly. Neither of us spoke at first, the silence heavy yet oddly comfortable. And then, without warning, it happened. The lights flickered once, twice, and then went out completely. The elevator jerked to a stop, leaving us suspended between floors in total darkness. For a moment, panic bubbled up inside me. What if no one realized we were stuck? How long would we be trapped here? But as my eyes adjusted to the dim emergency light above, I noticed Alex leaning against the wall, his expression calm despite the situation. "Well," he said with a wry grin, "this is awkward." His attempt at humor broke the tension, and we both laughed nervously. Small talk followed, comments about the weather, complaints about work, but beneath the surface, there was something else. Something unspoken. As the minutes dragged on, the air between us shifted. Conversations grew deeper, less guarded. Alex opened up in ways I'd never seen before, sharing pieces of himself he usually kept hidden. He talked about his fears, his dreams, his doubts. Each word drew me closer, making the confined space feel smaller yet strangely intimate. At one point, he turned to look at me directly. "You're easy to talk to, you know that," he said softly. His voice was different then, gentler, almost vulnerable. I didn't know how to respond, so I just smiled, hoping he couldn't see the blush creeping onto my cheeks. The attraction I'd tried so hard to deny pulsed stronger than ever, and I wondered if he felt it too. By the time help arrived, hours later, I wasn't the same person who had stepped into that elevator. Something fundamental had shifted, though neither of us acknowledged it right away. We parted ways with polite goodbyes, but the weight of what had transpired lingered heavily in the air. Little did I know, this was only the beginning. The next morning, I walked into the office feeling like I'd stepped into some alternate reality. Everything looked the same, the familiar hum of computers, the smell of stale coffee, the chatter of coworkers, but inside, I was a mess. My mind kept replaying every moment from the elevator, the way Alex's voice softened when he spoke, the intensity in his eyes when he looked at me, the charged silence that hung between us. It felt surreal, like a dream I wasn't ready to wake up from. But as much as I wanted to believe something had shifted, reality quickly set in. When I saw Alex for the first time that day, it was from across the room. He was standing by the coffee machine, laughing with someone else. Just like always. For a second, I wondered if I'd imagined the entire thing, if the intimacy I'd felt in the elevator had been one-sided. Then he glanced over, and our eyes met briefly before he looked away. The connection was undeniable, but so was the awkwardness. Neither of us said anything about what happened, and the longer we avoided it, the heavier it weighed on me. The days that followed were strange. Alex's behavior changed in subtle ways. Sometimes he seemed distant, avoiding eye contact or brushing off conversations. Other times, he went out of his way to be friendly, asking how my weekend went or commenting on small things like my choice of lunch. It was confusing, like he couldn't decide whether to pull away or lean in. And honestly, I wasn't much better. Part of me wanted to confront him, to ask what last night meant, but another part was terrified of hearing the answer. What if he regretted opening up? What if he thought I'd misinterpreted everything? I started doubting myself constantly. Did I read too much into harmless conversation? Was I projecting my own feelings onto him? Late at night, lying awake in bed, I replayed every word he'd said, searching for hidden meaning. Had his vulnerability been real, or was it just the stress of the situation talking? And then there was the bigger question, even if he had felt something, did it matter? He'd always claimed to be straight, after all. Maybe this was just a fleeting moment of confusion for him, a blip in an otherwise clear picture. But no matter how hard I tried to convince myself it didn't mean anything, I couldn't shake the memory of the way he'd looked at me. There was something raw and honest in his gaze, something that made me believe he felt it too. Still, uncertainty gnawed at me. I hated feeling so powerless, so unsure of where I stood. Then came the turning point. One afternoon, I was working late again, trying to distract myself with spreadsheets and emails. The office was nearly empty, save for a few stragglers finishing up their tasks. As I gathered my things to leave, I heard footsteps behind me. Turning around, I saw Alex walking toward me. His expression was unreadable, part nervous, part determined. "Hey," he said quietly, stopping a few feet away. "Do you have a minute?" My heart skipped a beat. This was it, the moment I'd been dreading and hoping for all at once. I nodded, clutching my bag tightly to steady my trembling hands. Whatever he was about to say, I knew it would change everything. I hesitated for a moment, unsure if I should stay or make up an excuse to leave. But something in Alex's tone, the quiet urgency of it, kept me rooted to the spot. "Yeah," I replied finally, my voice steadier than I expected. "What's up?" He glanced around the empty office as if checking for eavesdroppers, then gestured toward a nearby meeting room. "Can we talk somewhere private?" The request sent a jolt through me. Private. This wasn't just casual small talk anymore. My stomach tightened as I followed him into the dimly lit room, the door clicking shut behind us. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Alex leaned against the table, his hands shoved deep into his pockets, looking anywhere but at me. Finally, he let out a long breath and said, "I've been thinking about what happened in the elevator." His words hung in the air between us, heavy and loaded with unspoken meaning. "Me too," I admitted softly, though my voice betrayed the nervousness bubbling inside me. I wanted to ask him what he meant, to demand clarity, but I held back, letting him take the lead. Alex ran a hand through his hair, clearly struggling to find the right words. "Look, I don't know how to say this without sounding like an idiot, but that night changed something for me. Being stuck there with you, it made me realize things I'd been ignoring for a long time." My heart pounded in my chest. Was he saying what I thought he was saying? Or was I jumping to conclusions again? What kind of things? I asked cautiously, bracing myself for whatever came next. He hesitated before answering, his gaze flickering to mine and then away again. "Things about who I am. About what I want. I've always told myself I'm straight, that I'm not, like you. But lately, I haven't been so sure." His confession hit me like a wave, knocking the breath out of me. I stared at him, trying to process what he was saying. Did this mean he was questioning his sexuality? Or was he just confused because of what had happened between us? "I don't know what any of this means," he continued, his voice tinged with frustration. "All I know is that I can't stop thinking about you. About how easy it was to open up to you in that elevator. About how different I feel when I'm around you." The honesty in his words left me speechless. For so long, I'd convinced myself that nothing could ever happen between us, that he was untouchable, unreachable. But now, here he was, admitting feelings I'd only dared to dream about. It was overwhelming, exhilarating, and terrifying all at once. "I don't expect anything from you," Alex added quickly, mistaking my silence for hesitation. "I just needed to tell you. To be honest about how I feel. Even if it doesn't change anything, even if it makes things weird between us, I couldn't keep pretending like that night didn't matter." I swallowed hard, forcing myself to meet his eyes. "It mattered to me too," I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. "More than you know." Relief washed over his face, but it was quickly replaced by uncertainty. "So, where do we go from here?" he asked, his tone tentative. I wished I had an answer, something clear and definitive to offer him. But the truth was, I didn't. We were standing on shaky ground, navigating feelings neither of us fully understood. All I knew was that I couldn't walk away, not yet. Not when there was still a chance, however fragile, that something real could grow between us. "We'd take it slow," I said after a pause. "No pressure, no expectations. Just see where this goes." Alex nodded slowly, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Okay," he said. "Slow sounds good." As we left the meeting room together, the weight of everything unsaid still lingered between us. But for the first time, it felt lighter, like maybe, just maybe, we weren't completely lost after all. In the weeks that followed, everything felt different. Not perfect, not easy, but undeniably changed. Taking things slow wasn't just a choice, it was a necessity. Both of us were navigating uncharted territory, learning how to reconcile who we were with what we wanted. For Alex, it meant confronting questions about his identity that he'd spent years avoiding. For me, it meant letting go of doubts and fears that had held me back for so long. Together, we stumbled through moments of uncertainty, but also discovered glimmers of hope along the way. At first, our interactions were cautious, small gestures, lingering looks, conversations laced with careful subtext. We met outside of work sometimes, grabbing coffee or taking walks in places where no one would recognize us. These moments became sacred pockets of time, where we could be ourselves without judgment or expectation. I remember one evening in particular, when we sat on a park bench watching the sunset. Alex turned to me suddenly and said, "I don't know if I'll ever fully understand this part of myself. But I do know. I want to try, with you." His words caught me off guard, but they also filled me with a quiet kind of joy. It wasn't a declaration of love or even clarity, but it was honest. And for now, that was enough. Over time, Alex began to open up more, not just to me, but to himself. He started questioning the labels he'd always accepted as truth, realizing they didn't have to define him. Sometimes he'd get frustrated, wrestling with doubts and insecurities. Other times, he'd surprise me with moments of boldness, like holding my hand under the table during dinner or brushing a strand of hair from my face in public. Each step forward felt monumental, proof that growth doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen. For me, those months were transformative too. I learned to let go of the fear that had kept me guarded for so long. Being with Alex taught me that love isn't about certainty or perfection, it's about connection, trust, and the willingness to embrace uncertainty together. There were days when I wondered if we were moving too fast, or not fast enough, but every time I looked into his eyes, I saw someone who was trying. Someone who cared. And that made all the difference. Of course, there were challenges. People noticed changes in Alex's behavior, asking questions he wasn't ready to answer. Some coworkers speculated openly, their whispers following us down hallways. We handled it differently, he by deflecting with humor, me by retreating further into my shell, but eventually, we realized we couldn't hide forever. One day, Alex walked into the office wearing a t-shirt that read, "Love is love," in bold letters. When people asked about it, he simply shrugged and said, "It's true, isn't it?" It wasn't a grand announcement, but it was his way of saying he was done hiding. That small act of courage gave me strength I didn't know I needed. As the months passed, our relationship evolved in ways neither of us could have predicted. We weren't rushing toward anything, a label, a future plan, but instead savoring each moment as it came. There were still questions left unanswered, still pieces of ourselves we were figuring out. But for the first time, I felt hopeful. Hopeful that love could exist in the gray areas, in the spaces between definitions and expectations. Hopeful that being vulnerable wasn't a weakness, but a gift. Looking back, I realized the elevator incident wasn't just a random twist of fate, it was a catalyst. A moment that forced two people to confront truths they might otherwise have ignored. It reminded me that life has a funny way of bringing people together when they least expect it, often in the most ordinary of places. An elevator, a park bench, a quiet corner of an empty office, these aren't extraordinary settings, but they hold extraordinary potential. All it takes is a little courage, a little honesty, and a lot of heart. And while I can't say what the future holds, for Alex, for me, for us, I know one thing for sure, I wouldn't trade this journey for anything. Because in the end, it's not about where you start or how you get there. It's about finding someone who sees you, truly sees you, and chooses to stay anyway. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever had a moment that changed everything, where life surprised you in the most unexpected way? Share your experiences in the comments below. Let's create a space where we can all feel seen and understood. Stories like these remind us that we're never alone in our journeys, no matter how messy or uncertain they might feel. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. It helps more people find this channel and connect with these kinds of heartfelt stories. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future content. Every week, I share stories about love, identity, and the moments that shape us, because everyone deserves to feel heard and inspired. Lastly, if there's a topic or story you'd like me to explore next, drop it in the comments. Your voice matters, and it could be the inspiration for my next video. Thank you so much for being here, for listening, and for supporting this little corner of the internet where vulnerability meets connection. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.